Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me, joining me for the hype, the excitement for Bad Batch Season 3 is my good friend and yours, Arzu Amin, who is the managing editor and host of Geeky Waffle with bylines at Star Wars Insider and fellow Reylo. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, I've been talking with you for a little while about coming on the podcast, and I feel like we were both so excited when the trailer dropped that I was like, oh, it would just be fun to just have a hype episode and talk about, you know, our expectations, what's going on with the season, why we love it. I just think it would be fun to talk with somebody else about Bad Batch.
I'm excited. My hype for the season 3 trailer surprised me a little bit because I wasn't feeling the hype in season 2. I'm like, this is fine. Mm-hmm. But like, I really liked season 1. Season 2, I was like, this is okay. And then the season 3 trailer came out. And I was like, I'm so back. I'm so back. And I don't know what happened. Maybe it was some of the reveals. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just so ready for season 3. It kind of took me by surprise how excited I am.
You mentioned like season 1 really worked for you. What was it about like the original setup of the show that worked for you?
I think it was a couple things. I love an ensemble piece, and I liked the kind of distinct characters of the batch, including Omega, and them kind of figuring out what it is to be a clone in a changed galaxy, in a galaxy where the sole purpose that they were designed for isn't really a thing anymore. Mm-hmm. And kind of introducing that idea that like Rex brings in of like, well, you don't have this purpose anymore, but you do have a purpose. Like basically us as citizens of the galaxy have a purpose and you have a skill set that you could apply to that purpose. And kind of introducing that idea. And also there's something about, for all that the batch is, I think, at its largest in that season, like in terms of how many of them are there, it feels so cozy that first season and almost like nostalgic at this point. I have just such affection for it.
Yeah, it felt very Clone Wars to me first season.
Yeah.
Like just like a really solid continuation of the Clone Wars and like opening up the question of like, okay, the war's over, what now? Like what am I if I'm not like a weapon in a way, right? Or a soldier or, you know, and I've heard that resonates with a lot of veterans, especially, which is, it's good, you know, and we do know the writer director combo. This story in itself, like turning into a veteran or what is life after is very, very important to them both.
Yeah. I love that because that's such untapped potential, I think, in Star Wars, because, you know, Star Wars, there are a lot of them. There is constant conflict. There's constantly people either bred for war or drawn into war who deal with it. And we're like, okay, they did it. They saved the day. The war is over. But we so rarely get to dwell in the what now. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think publishing does really well, is there's a lot of, you know, aftermath, the name Aftermath, or like Bloodline, or I'm like looking at my shelf trying to remember what all the books are, but all the things that deal with the immediate aftermath of the war and like kind of where does this leave our heroes? Where does this leave the galaxy is such a good story. So having it in a visual medium as like another way to tell that story with a group of men that we are kind of just meeting, but kind of know really well because they are also clones and we all have different clones that we're very attached to and have affection for. So I think this was like a really natural way to bring that story to the screen.
I think so too. And it also plugs into something that I hope to go into a little bit later on as far as like the thematic elements and inevitability of working against the sort of war machine that Star Wars produces, right? Like you as a Reylo, maybe you're very familiar with the desire for fellow Reylos to have a stormtrooper rebellion in the sequel trilogy. We wanted that so badly because in some ways it sort of heals a lot of the, I guess, psychological damage that has happened in the galaxy, right? And it really feels like maybe the creators didn't hear us, but they were thinking about it too, because a lot of the creators from from Star Wars Resistance went on to create the Bad Batch. And so it's like maybe they were there too a little bit. Like they were picking up on the same things that we desired from a story perspective.
I think not to get into the sequel trilogy, but you know me, I'm gonna. That concept of a stormtrooper rebellion, I think, resonates so much because we did just spend 2 movies, and if you're reading the books and the books as well, talking about how like all of these people were conditioned to fight like from a very young age, against their will. And it's not dissimilar from the clones, even though they were bred for the purpose, but still this was the only purpose that they can recall. So having the war be over and kind of what now, how do I get out of this? How do I turn my purpose, my skills to bettering the galaxy instead of just fighting? That I think is a very natural hope when you're presented with the narrative of child soldiers, and then having it be like, only the special ones can break their conditioning and everybody else just kind of is stuck, feels very, very bleak. And I think that's something that Bad Batch does really well. It's like, well, nobody's stuck. Like you have to choose to forge your own path. You have to find your own way out. If you want to do what, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, the clone with the wife and kids.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to do what he did and just kind of peace out, start a family, live somewhere quiet for the rest of your days, cool. If you want to take the Rex and Echo route and really ingrain yourself,
try and help others, right,
in the system, also cool. Like it's, everybody has their own approach to it, but what is your approach going to be? And like is very cathartic.
Bringing into season 2, seeing like our speculation around what would happen with Cody and him reacting in like the way I don't think a lot of people expected Cody to like go that way. And so like I think like because of how conditioned he was to the rules and everything like that, and the betrayal immediately of Obi-Wan, like I guess like people didn't really expect him to be like, whoa, I'm questioning the system.
Yeah, but like that's what's so cool is that not everybody can flip the switch right away. But everybody given the chance can flip the switch eventually.
And that's such a powerful message that we almost need like all the time. Like it's never too late to make a different decision when you see others suffering around you. Like, oh man, so powerful.
Yeah, we see that. It's like, okay, you didn't make the right decision yesterday, but if you're choosing to make the right decision today, that's better than never making the right decision.
Right. Yeah. And there's also a lot of like give on like, I don't know, acceptance that these and perspective done in a beautiful storytelling way, that so many people are caught up in the society, culture, system, that it's understandable that they can't break free.
Yeah. Which is a whole other like very real tragedy of like there are extenuating circumstances, there's conditioning, there's trauma, there's all of these things that kind of keep you stuck in the status quo and not able to conceive of something else. And that doesn't make anybody a bad person. That's just, kind of, I guess, what is that approach? Like, what is your approach towards them? What's their approach in the future going to be? Did that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it did.
Sometimes I say things and I'm like,
no.
Does that track?
No, it totally made sense. So what about like the story, you talked a little bit about like the hominess, the family, the coziness of the Bad Batch. Is that something that you find like particularly interesting about the story of the Batch, or is it the exploration of the different roles? Is it like we were talking about the sort of next steps for these people who were veterans? I
think what I like about it is, especially, I guess, this continued into the second season. What I liked about it is it surprised me in its approach, because those first episodes were them kind of hopping place to place. I sort of thought that was going to be the format of the whole show, but having them kind of set up a home base and kind of come and go from it and sort of try to establish a life made it a lot more grounded than I think I was expecting it to be, because it's like you said, like these people trying to make a life within the confines of this system, even if it's on the other side of the law. So by not having the focus, I guess, of each new episode be the new place and the rules of this new world, it gives us more time to spend with them as a group and them as people and kind of get to know them a bit better. And I think, like, I'm thinking back to season 2, I think that one kind of hopped around a little more, and that was maybe why I didn't find it as cozy.
And they also dealt with, like, people leaving, like Echo, and then, and then...
That broke me.
Tech, and then... And like Crosshair, like running into conflicts with them. Like there was a lot more, like, again, this is a 3-act structure, darker middle chapter, and separations, right? Like similar to Empire Strikes Back. It's like very, very similar conceptually to Empire Strikes Back with what they're kind of dealing with separations and being on the run and not really feeling at ease. And even if they feel like they have peace, like when they go to that island planet and they kind of rest, they don't have peace. Like that's like part of it is like it might be a momentary sort of lap of the goddess moment where they're like, I'm at rest, I'm in paradise, I can rest, but they can't stay there because the rest of the galaxy is still suffering.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, like I'm not worried. I'm worried. But like, you know, tragedy is something.
I don't know. It feels like this particular creative team gets it. Like I hope like
so.
You know, like I
hope so.
I think so. I do think that there has been like some key like points and themes that I want to call out. And feel free to like share like your own thoughts on different things that you found to be really important that this show does in has done in a particular way that I don't think the rest of the franchise necessarily has done. Like I could talk about, hey, transformations. They go to a lot of caves. They go to a lot of mines. They go to Underworld a lot from a like mythic motif perspective and experience finding treasures within that and growing as individuals. That's Star Wars. But they have a particular vibe of different things that they have dealt with that hasn't been dealt with in like kind of the rest of Star Wars, like the Stormtrooper Rebellion.
Right.
This all started with the destruction of Kamino. And I don't think anyone was mentally prepared that Kamino would be destroyed.
No, I had been theorizing prior to this that at some point the Mandalorian was going to go to Kamino.
Oh,
like almost immediately prior to this. And then felt super silly when Kamino was destroyed. I'm like, I guess not. But I had kind of thought that, you know, we were going to, because the cloning became a thing in The Mandalorian. So I was like, we're going to go back to like where it all started. We're going to go to Kamino. Maybe there's something still going on there.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to happen anymore. But so that's what took me by surprise. I was like, oh, we're really giving them kind of nothing to go back to.
No.
So
it shocked me in so many ways that Kamino was destroyed. I know a lot of people have been like, were very upset at the end of season 1 that no, there is no going back. This is only a forward journey because like, and although they actually kind of end up going back a little bit, it's not ever going to be what it was or what it represented to them during the Clone Wars for Omega or for the rest of the batch. So that's been really, to me, really interesting to see because although we've seen destructions of homes before, like Alderaan, and we saw Hosnian Prime, we never had the emotional connection to the place that was destroyed to that level.
Yeah. Like I was going to say, even the first thing that came to mind when I was like, they have nowhere to go back is like, as simple as like the homestead in A New Hope. Like the building's still there, but his aunt and uncle aren't there. Like there's nothing there to go back to. So we don't have that emotional connection. We've only been here for 10 minutes, but he does. Like what Skywalker does means a lot to him. So I think in that way, like they're also kind of mirroring that, like A New Hope's structure in ending their first act with the homestead is gone.
Yeah. And certainly we've had those before, but I don't know as an audience, if like, especially Clone Wars fans, if we've had as much time with a place that has been actively destroyed.
No, I think the only other thing I can think of is in the High Republic is Starlight Beacon, but that's
right.
But that's books. That's not
books. Yeah, well, the visual
not
medium,
not to drag books, but that's not what most of the audience sees.
Yeah, like people. There's a lot of Clone Wars fans who have seen and spent time in Kamino. Kamino was on the big screen from an Attack of the Clones perspective. So I think it just like, it was a bigger gut punch in some ways than they could ever achieve with the destruction of Alderaan. Maybe better now if people were like watching Kenobi and then watched A New Hope. But, you know, still, there is like from a Bell Hooks perspective, I bring up Bell Hooks a lot because I love her intersectional feminism, but a showing the dominator culture, like the capitalist, imperialist, white supremacist patriarchy, and how, you know, in some ways the clones being bred to only do violence, and then their story out of it has been such a beautiful narrative to the fact that unless they're fighting droids, they stun everybody.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So what is life without death? Like what is life without killing? What is, and that narrative itself plays in heavily into the House of Atreus mythic motif theme, and this ties to the fact that our cloning facility, Mount Tantus, was actually specifically named Mount Tantus after the Tantalos family, originally by Timothy Zahn when he created it in Heir to the Empire. And so Tantalos is the patriarch of the House of Atreus. The House of Atreus is a big theme in mythology that deals with consumption of children. And so if you think about the clones, they are children that have been bred to be consumed by a society at war.
I feel like I'm learning so much about this thing that I've seen like countless times. And I'm just like, oh my God.
And so what is the solution to the sort of curse of House of Atreus, i.e. consuming the children or consuming our future, which is the clones, Omega representing the ultimate version of that children often do in it, is turning the violence, the consumption, into kindness and forgiveness. And so
Omega exemplified.
Exactly. And so like Omega represents this mythic elixir, this thing that the Bad Batch has been missing all this time, the opportunity to nurture. So cool. I love it. It's everywhere across the Bad Batch. And the fact that they're going back to Mount Tantalus means Joseph Campbell has this quote, which is, "The cave you fear to enter is the one that has the treasure you seek."
Gee, I wonder where we've seen that motif before.
Everywhere. It's everywhere, right? But like that's the idea. This is the theme that has been pervasive across the Bad Batch.
I got stuck on one word you said, which was like forgiveness is part of healing this. So with Omega and Crosshair in the same place, maybe this is jumping ahead into speculation and we can dial it back if you want to.
No, I love
Omega and Crosshair being in the same place.
Yeah.
Are we here for Crosshair redemption? Because I am.
Absolutely. I'm here for redemption of everybody.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I mean,
no,
But do we think we're going to get it?
I think he's already been redeemed. And I say that because of the Mayday episode. And thematically, he experienced a journey with another soul who he had to care for. And he sees himself reflected in Mayday's plight. And Mayday ends up dying. And the hard reality of the dominator culture that he lives in doesn't care for him. And so he sees it. And you see him reborn in a way through the shadow of like the scavenger, which is the name of the episode. It is a brilliant episode from a symbolism perspective and also just from a storytelling perspective.
It was I think one of my favorite episodes of the season.
Yeah.
Was that one.
It crushes you, and it crushes you on multiple levels because of the symbolism that's there, but also just how well the character and the story being told aligns with that symbolism. If people use symbolism that doesn't align with what the character is experiencing, it feels dissonant.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when they use it together, you're like, whoa, what is happening? It's like resonating.
It's just like, you are obviously so much more well-versed in the symbolism of it all than I am, but my thing with that episode, I think what resonated for me so much was he is, I think for the first time really in the whole series, kind of isolated, not just from like, you know, he's been isolated from his brothers with the Empire, but he's now so physically isolated from the Empire. So it's like you with your like, you're just with yourself, you're with your emotions, you're with your thoughts. What are you going to do in this moment when there is absolutely nobody else telling you what to do?
Yeah.
And like that, I think is the core of what makes him who he is. Like that's not what makes him who he is. Let me try to phrase that properly. That's the core of like who he could have been all along.
Without
by
like
being isolated, it kind of gives him the chance to jump. Yeah, because there's absolutely nobody there watching him. There's nobody telling him what to do. There's no society, no governing body, no nothing.
None of his brothers for him to like measure up against.
Even on the good side, I don't just mean like control from the Empire. Like Hunter's not watching him. Nobody. So this is him at his like purest self, which is I think what makes it so interesting because we didn't really get that time with him. He was always kind of not the plot device, but like the tool to be used by either side. By the Batch or the Empire, and now this is just him, Crosshair. As
I still think he's gonna have some like it's a hard road. The fact that he went from sort of this realization that the group that he's part of doesn't actually care about him.
Mm-hmm.
To like symbolically into the underworld, like he's dead spiritually. Like he's got a road to go. Like I'm not saying that he won't, but I do think that Omega being in the same place as him is really, really important because of what she represents to the Batch and to the clones in general. And she certainly, from my perspective, she represents the missing feminine in their lives. So that nurturing, the care, the ability to have home, to have family, things like that. She is also sort of like that, missing child that they never got to be children. So they get that with her. And that's often something that people bring up when they've had a hard childhood, that when they have children, they're allowed to like relive that period of time in their lives. So she's kind of like this symbolic elixir for the Batch and also for the clones in general of the potentiality of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that they also give in the second season Omega more femme mentors. Like first she had Sid, who's kind of like this not great mentor, but she gets Fee and she also gets Fennec, which is also kind of interesting, right?
Which I'm so here for because I don't know. I'm always here for more Fennec. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. And Mei Wong like loves the character.
Mm-hmm.
Like
she really does.
Did you see that? Like, is it an Instagram post or a video of her passing the entrance to her house with the statue?
Like, give this woman a season 2 of the Book of Boba Fett. What are we even doing here?
Like, she deserves to be able to like play this character as long as she wants to. She did such a great job in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, why don't we just like green light like a show for her?
Honestly, it's just I saw a snippet in the trailer of Fennec coming back, and I feel like because of the season 3 trailer, and I feel like because every time we've seen her in the show, it's been her with like Omega. It's got something to do with Omega. I'm hopeful that that's what's going to happen again, and it's not just like a blink and you miss it Fennec cameo because she's a popular character. Like I hope she's going to have something significant to do in season 3 that's got to do with Omega's arc, because Omega loves her brothers, but they are messy individuals.
They really are. And also like Hunter kind of almost plays like a father role with her. And so he takes on more of like that sort of role to her, a parental role, than the others do. He plays that role with everybody, but like it's a little bit different to have somebody that you get along with that is not quite like, related to you. yeah.
Or literally related. Like they're literally all related, whereas like Fennec is kind of the outsider mentor. Fee is an outsider mentor. Like they're not family. They just kind of love this kid. I'm choosing to believe they love this kid because you wouldn't spend that much time with a kid you didn't like.
I think so. I think everybody kind of learns to love or grows to love Omega. I think she's just kind of like that style of character. Like the special magical child is often that character in stories. I have a hope. This is speculation, but it has nothing to do with the trailer. It's more just the vibes of who, from a bounty hunter perspective, was presented in the trailer. Plus Ventress. I hope we get Alpha himself, Boba Fett.
I was gonna go there, but I was like maybe that's
this
too
is
much.
The time.
We can't keep talking about him and not bring him up.
Yeah,
that's not okay. We can't keep doing this. So
he needs to be in an episode. They need to meet each other.
I was kind of on my clown makeup when the Book of Boba Fett was on, because I thought because the two had come out so close together that we were going to get an adult Omega pop up, which didn't happen. But I would love for the two of them to meet at this point.
Yeah.
Because then that presents the possibility that we could see more Omega later.
Yeah.
Because she's a part of Boba's life.
Yeah. I also like specifically calling him Alpha and choosing to call her Omega ties to the beginning and the end of the clones, right? So if this is the end of sort of what we assume to be the clones, clones being stuck in this system of violence and what they represent, or being killed themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the outcomes of this, Omega bringing an end to it and having like Alpha Boba Fett be involved in the end of it. Oh, it just it feels good to include him in this.
It feels like such a natural move that I think it'd be almost silly to not put him in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just purely from a plant and payoff perspective.
Yeah. We'd all
and
be
then going deeper into like the narrative reasoning. Like it just seems silly to not have that.
It would be cool to see what his animation looks like too in the new style.
Yeah, because he would also be a bit older, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Than we last saw him, like teenage, late teens kind of thing.
We've never seen what Boba Fett looks like that.
No, we haven't.
I don't know. That's my like, I hope. Come on, universe.
Same.
I have also really loved, okay, let's talk about maybe the elephant in the room, Tech.
Yeah.
Is he dead?
Okay. Maybe. Okay, there's one of two ways this could go. There's what I'm calling the Stellan Gios route, which even though I want to believe he's living with the mermaids in the High Republic, like he's not. So there's the route of this character is dead and here's how that death informs how the rest of us do things because of how deeply it has affected us. Or there's they caught Tech, they broke his brain and now he's been like conditioned to be some sort of evil killing machine.
Winter soldiering.
Winter soldiering him. And now we have to like love him back to the good side. I prefer the second.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anybody to die. Like call me a wimp, call me immature. I don't like it when characters die. But likely I think it's gonna be a Tech is dead and here's how this motivates everybody else.
I don't think he is dead.
I would love for him to not be dead. But why do you not think he's dead?
Because Fee is still in the show.
Right.
And in a way that becomes like a lost husband narrative. And they could do that. Right. I think he was lost. Yes, that can still function as a narrative. Like, where is he? What is he without us? But it's sort of the final, because I think Crosshair is already redeemed. I think he's going to find his, like, it's not about bringing back Crosshair. It's now going to be about bringing back Tech. And that sort of shows symbolically the larger struggle of bringing back all the clones out of the programming and things like that. If they have a more personal, like, this person who was absolutely on our side now is not, bringing him back more specifically.
Yeah, I hope
it
so.
Personalizes it a lot.
Honestly, that to me is a more interesting narrative. Like, we have to bring this person back, or in Crosshair's case, we have done everything we could to bring this person back, and now he's got to make that journey by himself. Like, we've done all we could. Those, to me, are more interesting narrative possibilities than, well, I guess he's gone.
Yes.
And that's the end of that. So that's my hope, is that it's going to be what you said, and it's a question of he is lost, bring him back. Just because I keep saying it, but it's more interesting. It's less bleak and predictable, I guess we could call it.
I think it's
not predictable, like, for them to bring him back. It would be predictable, like, well, he's dead.
Yeah, it would be predictable to be like...
And I think it's less predictable to be like, how do we bring him home?
And, maybe it's time to, like, watch the trailer together and sort of, like, react to it. I think we're there. And depending on how good the audio is, we'll keep it in here. All right. Ready to go?
All right.
All right.
Hold on! We've got troopers up top.
Like, this is Hunter and Wrecker. Definitely.
Exactly a stealth exit, boys.
It really hit me. Like, I know Fee is part of their group now, but it really hit me watching this that there really is only 2 of them left.
Yeah.
Out of this whole crew.
And like a little bit with Rex, right? Helping them out or asking them to get involved in things.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
We can't just walk away. Not with the Empire imprisoning the kid.
Oh, I love her hair.
Yeah. She's so grown up.
You're her in a cell.
Hemlock.
Omega's been waiting for us a long time.
Okay, when they say a long time, do we know how long it's been?
No. I hope they set those expectations.
I hope so. Even if it's just 6 months, I just would like to know.
Whatever is needed to accomplish this goal, you will have it.
They are coming.
Oh, Fennec.
Girl, that's my girl.
If you Give us a real challenge. Everyone, down! We're not big on following orders.
Oh my goodness.
I wasn't planning on killing you, but you're making it very tempting.
The noise I let out the first time.
Right?
Okay. So,
All right. Are we mentally prepared to talk about the trailer?
Yes.
I think
we're
ready.
Before we dive into the depths of it, how happy I am. Echo's back. I know Echo's part of the crew, but Echo's like my favorite clone trooper. I named my pet Gerbil after him. So I'm very happy that Echo is back.
That's so good. I love Echo. And it's been so interesting to see him and Tech together, because it was almost like a technological redundancy. But I'm like, wait. Tech and Echo, those are the droids of the season. It's the R2-D2 and C-3PO.
They don't they're the techie guys, but they don't feel they didn't fill the same function. So
I know.
We have room for both.
We have room, yes. So initial thoughts on this, it definitely feels like Hunter and Wrecker are alone. It feels so sad. We got a quick shot of Emery Carr, who said, like, I'm your sister, Omega, like,
which
very dramatically in last season.
I would love to know more about.
Which is cool, because she's played by Kesha Castle Hughes, who's from Whale Rider and Almighty Johnsons. She is,
and who was in the third Star Wars movie,
as like the Queen of Naboo. Mm-hmm. So she's also from New Zealand and is from sort of Indigenous descent. So vibing with that choice.
Love that. I completely missed that. She was in season 2 as well.
Yeah.
I completely missed that was her.
Yeah.
Unless somebody told me and I forgot. But
amazing choice, right?
Yeah.
And she's like Academy nominated actress. Yeah, let's go. So, I'm super fascinated by that aspect of Omega being in where she is against Mount Tantus, is like this symbolic underworld for all of them. They're all kind of like trapped prisoners, spiritually dead from the world, right? All of that. So this is a period of transformation for both Crosshair and for Omega. Meeting with a femme older version of herself is spiritually and symbolically like meeting with the goddess. So that's like heroine's journey stuff. It's cool stuff. So I can't wait to actually it's literally a shot of her. I can't tell anything that's happening, but there's a lot of meat.
You don't cast somebody who means that much and be like, this isn't relevant.
No, there's going to be something to dig into with that.
Yeah.
I fully expect Crosshair to help out Omega. Even if he's unsuccessful, I think he's going to try. Yeah. And I think the person that we see with those clone troopers or those other dark, troopers,
like armor,
is Tech.
Okay, I'm vibing with that. Say that, and somebody said that we saw somebody else in that armor last season, and I'm like, that doesn't mean it couldn't be Tech this season. That means nothing.
Yeah, I think it could be him.
I would love if that was Tech. Because what a plot twist. It's not even that much of a twist.
I just love the idea that maybe he's actually more machine than man now. Either way. And also, like, again, Winter Soldierizing him, and that although he was maybe like, and they went into it so hard in second season, how he has trouble sort of communicating his emotions to others, how that resonated with a lot of fans who are either on the spectrum or, just vibe with him in general.
Yeah.
And how much, like, even though he may be trapped in this very solitary situation, that his family would still care to bring him out of it. And I feel like that is such a good story to tell that they can't not do it.
I hope so. I feel like I always get my hopes up and then I get dashed by predictability, but I hope so, because honestly, like, helping him kind of rediscover himself, though he feels he can't connect in the same way, them showing that was never a barrier to them loving him, to him being part of the family. Like, that's such a good, meaningful arc that would be so much more meaningful than he's dead and we're sad about it.
Yes. It literally, we already had dealt with in the second season. This is into my like speculation land, but we'd already dealt with the separation of Echo, you know, in the same season, so close together. I kind of feel like we get all those emotions, but we also get reunion, which is also like, it's such a big part of Star Wars, and sometimes Star Wars fails at it, right? Like, and so I hope Star Wars rises to the occasion.
I hope so.
Yeah. What do you think about Ventress? Let's talk about her.
I have long maintained that Ventress is not dead, because taking the magical woman to her magical planet to be submerged in the magical waters in the village full of women who resurrect people is very much setting up the fact that she's not actually dead.
Yes.
It's just, it writes itself. And I think it was like one of those things that they didn't really know how they wanted to end it. They would, because Dark Disciple, the book where all this happens, was supposed to be a Clone Wars arc. So if you conclude the arc in a, well, I guess Ventress is dead, then you can bring Ventress back later and be like, surprise, she lived, and then explain it however you want. But, you know, with all the focus after Dark Disciple shifting to other eras and other stories, like it was just never a natural time for her to come back. But her coming back in like a Clone Wars-esque story makes the most sense to me. I think the setup narratively was there, which is what makes it different from like somehow Palpatine returned, in that we have the setup for this. The story is half told. So like, to me, it makes a lot more, like it's a lot more logical. And I'm just ready for her to come back.
Yeah. It's been long enough.
It's been long enough.
You know
She's
what?
Such a great character.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts. First, I'll say that this is not the first time that Ventress has been considered to be coming back. The Resistance creators originally wanted Ventress to come back as that dark side user in season 2 that they run into. They originally wanted it to be Ventress. So this has been on their agenda for a little while. Again, same creative team. So yes, let's bring her back. There's all the symbolic elements of rebirth. When you're dealing with Force users, nobody is truly ever dead. So this is like a thing about Star Wars that I think a lot of fans who aren't really don't really vibe with like the mythical elements of it don't necessarily get, because the Force is weird and screwy and wild, and literally we have the potentiality for people to die, quote unquote, but never actually die, i.e. they become Force ghosts. But we don't know what Force ghosts really are, other than that they're part of the Force. We could have characters that quite literally just are maintained by the Force. Mother Talzin died, and yet she came back inside of the Clone Wars. Maul has died multiple times and has come back.
Cut in half.
Yes.
Like, that is extremely dead, and Maul came back.
Ventress got struck by Force lightning, which, if you've read Dooku Jedi Lost, she has been struck by Force lightning multiple times. and then returned to the nurturing waters of her own planet that are healing. Like, she was never dead, but okay, for the sake of mythical elements, she was dead, but that does not mean that you cannot return. And that is like a weird thing that I think a lot of fans who haven't really maybe dug into like the Joseph Campbell of it, or listened to George Lucas talk about Star Wars, or listen to Dave Filoni talk about Star Wars, don't necessarily remember or know or assume are correct. Who die, it's always temporary until they become Force ghosts.
And even then, we don't know
never if there's resurrection in Star Wars. We don't know if there's resurrection because they haven't gotten there yet.
My favorite thing to say is you couldn't move things with the Force until the Empire Strikes Back.
Yep.
Like, the Force does what we need it to narratively.
Yeah.
It's obviously nothing that we can pin down. Like, Ahsoka showed us that, you know, for better or worse, however you feel about it, that somebody who is not innately super Force sensitive can work on that, can train to access it. We are learning new things about the Force all the time.
And Ahsoka, even in the show, pretty much just fell into the Force. So, like, she and Anakin in that episode talks about how, oh, are you here to stay? Basically, you're dead. but I guess you have the choice to go back if you want. But let's talk first. Like, she died. Like, I just like we have to just kind of put it out there that the rules of what people think are life and death are only symbolic in Star Wars.
Because it seems reductive to say because it's fake and it's based, but really because these are...
And it's fairy tale. It's fantasy.
Fairy tales. Exactly. They're fairy tales. They are fantasy. They are...
People come back from the dead with kisses.
Mm-hmm. He's going to come back too. I'm convinced that's what the setup is. He's just having a longer conversation in the World Between Worlds than Ahsoka did, but then he's going to come back.
I have a lot of theories about what could happen, but we could do that some other time.
I mean, just to very briefly say, because that is my brand, is things about Ben Solo, I'm just saying it's not a coincidence that we're going into production on Rey's movie now, and they're like, let's soft launch the idea of a dead character, like a dead Force-sensitive character fully coming back. Not as a Force ghost, not as a concept, not in dreams, but like corporeally present. They're soft launching the idea because now we've got precedent.
Yep. And also, like, you know, I'll die on this hill. It's a weird hill to die on, but I'm going to die on it. I think Maul is going to come back in Ahsoka,
like season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why? Look,
I think he'll be kind of more dead, but I truthfully do think that Sam Witwer will get to play the role again.
At this point, I will take any of it if it narratively makes sense.
Yeah,
if it's not like they're here because we want.
Yeah, it has to do with like Ahsoka being a Force god, and we don't have the version of the sun out there.
Right.
In the narrative. So it's
as long as it's my issue with people like old characters coming back is when they come back purely so that you can sit up on your couch for half a second, point at the screen and be like, I know that guy, and then sit back down.
That's
all about my problem is.
Mythic symbolic meaning for the universe. But no, Ben Solo is not to make it about Ben Solo. Ben Solo, little bit, but Ben Solo is a dying god. So in mythology, they die and resurrect all the freaking time. And traditionally, you cannot have them come back until you genuinely think that they're dead.
Which, you know, most Force later
users
seems like a pretty good time to give up on it.
Yeah. So it's a weird like psychological like mythic motif thing that's happening. But if they want to bring him back, he's back.
This actor, Adam Driver, he got 2 kids to put through college.
He's like, I need that Star Wars money.
He's open to the Star Wars paycheck. They can Pirates of the Caribbean 5 it, and it can be a wordless cameo, and I will take it.
He comes back at the end.
Because it completes the narrative. It completes the circle. It doesn't have to be the point of the story. It's just it puts a button on it.
Fundamentally, a lost husband story is about the person searching for the lost husband. We actually never need to see the lost husband until the last like couple of moments, and then we are satisfied. So it can be all about Rey, all about her journey, all about the things involved. And if she gets him back, she is more whole at the end of the journey than she was at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So speaking of interest and being whole, do you think that this means that we'll get Quinlan Vos?
They also soft launched Quinlan Vos.
They did in Kenobi.
They're like
graffiti
Quinlan
on the wall. That guy, bad boy, writing graffiti.
Listen, I'm just saying, I feel like so many of these things, like Quinlan was here and he made the path, and this is how the path is is relevant.
Like, is the story group working overtime here?
Well, because I think they know at this point that like there's the Star Wars fans who will sit here and will analyze and will take, metas, and we'll take the books and we'll take this and we'll take like mythology and all of this and kind of do that. And then there's the people who want to be able to point at a specific in-text reference to why this thing is happening. Yeah. And you have to please everybody. So I think having Kenobi just be like, Quinlan was here, and then like Vos never actually shows up in the show. Why are you mentioning him at all? Yeah. It's because you want to soft launch Quinlan. It's like it's like all of those books that came out right before Galaxy's Edge opened, just passing by Batuu. Batuu had nothing to do with the story. They were soft launching the idea. So I think having Quinlan get a name drop. Yeah. Then when,
And
when he pops up in the Bad Batch, then
Wars,
it's like, oh, remember?
Yeah, it's not like it's so weird that they brought him up. And he had a relationship with Kenobi in... Man, Obi-Wan does not like Quinlan. It makes me endlessly happy to see their relationship. And also Obi-Wan's relationship with regards to Ventress in Dark Disciple through Quinlan. Like, honestly, just read Dark Disciple. It's a really solid book.
I feel like I want to reread it now. Like, all the hype has me like wanting to reread it, so I think I might do that
to refresh yourself on.
Yeah, it just because I really enjoyed it. It was one of the first Star Wars books I read fairly early on, because I thought I had seen the Clone Wars, so I'm like, okay, I would probably jive with this, and it was one of the first ones, and I really, really enjoyed it then. And then I kind of reread it with a bit more context later, loved it even more. So I think now, in preparation for the new season,
I think it's a good solid call. Anyone who's like looking for Reylo vibes, enemies to lovers in general, and also a lost husband story, because it classifies. So
it's also, for those who maybe haven't read like a lot of Star Wars books, it's fairly accessible. Like there are some that, you know, you kind of need to be aware of the nitty gritty to really get the most out of it. You don't with this one. You it'll kind of give you an idea of who everybody is off the top, and then that's all you need.
I think my last thing is, like, with Rex bringing up, like, we thought we could, like, chill out, but they've got the kid. Like, again, Clone Trooper Rebellion is sort of like the macro, but it's all about reuniting the family, bringing the fam back together. To me, that is like the ultimate version of healing of what has happened to the clone troopers since, like, before the Clone Wars, right? Being bred just for violence, etc. And creating something that is about creation and kindness and nurturing is the ultimate healing of that. And so I feel like that's where they're going. And I think that's the most satisfying, like, metatextual choice. With that in mind, and if we pair it against Palpatine and what we know he's working on,
right? How
do you feel about, like, the meta story of the galaxy during this period of time?
The clones kind of finding this healing and all that as a whole other clone project is ramping up.
Yeah. Like, it's literally like, oh, I'm going to make my son. Because, like, that's, like, he's trying to create an heir to himself that he can eventually, like, possess, I guess. Because he wants to make a Force-sensitive heir, I think. I think that's, like, I don't know. The
Shadows of the Sith was a long time ago. It was a lot of books ago for me.
Yeah, and we're trying to understand, like, the logic of the rise of Skywalker, and
I also just reject so much of that narrative.
No, I know, but like they're doubling
so I'm just trying
down.
To remember it.
They're doubling down with, like, Mandalorian and the cloning with that, and
I mean,
you know,
I think it's very on brand for Star Wars. It makes a lot of sense for this narrative, purely because, like, the clones as a group can find this healing together and find this purpose together and kind of forge a new path for themselves as a group in the galaxy. That said, we know what's going to happen to the galaxy 25 years from now. Like, it's the galaxy never has that healing.
Yeah. Because it always has to be a binary of some sort. It's like waves, right?
They dive into this, like, ultra, we are going to do things right this time around system that doesn't make allowance for the fact that there are factions on the fringes of the galaxy that are rising up that are going to become the eventual First Order. Like, they don't take any of that into account. So, of course, the galaxy
falls back in,
dissolves into war one more time. And Palpatine making clones for himself now for a different purpose than he had orchestrated all of this during the war is reflective of that. It's not the same conflict, but it kind of follows a similar pattern.
Yeah.
As a result of the previous conflict. So I think it makes sense for where we know the galaxy is going for this to be the thing, but that I don't think takes away, and I don't think this is what you were saying either, it doesn't take away the value of the clones kind of finding a peace and a healing for themselves, especially because most of them aren't going to live to see what happens to the galaxy because of their double aging. So
it reminds me, it sort of reminds me of, oh my God, that Bare Naked Ladies song, Lovers in a Dangerous Time.
Yeah, like the idea, like, you have to
protect your own peace amongst the chaos in a way. Like, you have to do what you can for like the people around you and your little like group, helping as many people as you can. Because the problem with just protecting the batch for the batch is that, well, the batch are also clones. So they have to go back and they have to help others. And it's sort of like that bodhisattva concept of, well, if there is suffering, you have to stay. And so I do think like Rex continues on with the rebellion because I think Dave likes the idea that he's that old guy in Return of the Jedi so much that like some of them still continue to fight. I think that, and we see some of the clones in Rebels, obviously. I do think that there's going to be that continued vibe of like, well, some of us still have to continue this work. Probably Echo will continue it on. But I do think that there is something about finding the peace, nurturing kindness towards others, and taking that and building a community. So we might see the clones go to that cool planet, like the island planet. We might see them build their own home somewhere too.
I love that idea. I've loved this idea for a long time of like a community of like clones. If they wanted to start families, like clones and their families just kind of finding some peace somewhere. Yeah. Because they were the one group in the galaxy that really never had a choice. They never got that Bare Naked Ladies song experience of getting to no, but I like that's such a good comparison that this is all I'm gonna think about now when I listen to that song. Is like they never got the chance to like appreciate the beauty of it all because they were bred for a specific violent purpose. So them, even as the rest of the galaxy is kind of figuring itself out, that they finally get like 10 years, 20 years of peace.
Yeah. It's sort of like the Lasats. Like we saw that in Rebels. Yeah. So I mean, I think that, so one thing I've always struggled with with Star Wars is if Star Wars is always at war, like always the war, what is a happily ever after look like? And for me, I want the clones to have a happily ever after. It is the microcosm of the Bad Batch and the nurturing love version of what they built brought to the macro scale of the clones.
So my question for you on this is, do you think that by the end of this season, we're going to kind of see that piece set up for them to kind of like put a button on clone-centric narratives, at least for the time being?
Yes, because I think that they're going to move more into the Mandalorian centric, like, although they went back to Mandalore, I think like what the Mandalorians represent, and so Boba Fett being both a Mandalorian and a clone, I think the Mandalorian aspect of that will take over post, like in the New Republic times.
Right.
I think it'll be as close to a happily ever after as we can get to for the clones.
I think like because the galaxy is so sprawling, the closest we get to happy ever after is like individual happily ever afters, not a galactic one. Like, that's never gonna happen.
It's like the idea you never want to bring back a character because that's gonna make them suffer. Like let them have their peace off in a planet.
But like truly.
Yeah.
I agree. I only want characters brought back if their ending wasn't happy. So that they can get that happy ending and then go away forever.
And then, like maybe they continue to help others and they find some version of joy throughout their story. And it's more balanced. It's not endless pain, right? So that is the most George Lucasian thing, would be seeking joy, seeking compassion for others, but avoiding, sort of like the passion involved with constantly fighting a conflict. Yeah. I don't know. I am hype.
I'm so hyped for this season. Like I kind of feel like I want to rewatch season 2, maybe season 1 as well.
Yeah.
But I'm so hyped for this season now.
That's good. I'm
like more than I was just watching the trailer.
I'm so happy to have been able to talk about this with you and like get your feelings, especially. Do you have any other thoughts? Anything speculation wise that you absolutely want to have happen?
Stupidly and selfishly, I want if we are getting a young Boba, I want him and Fennec to bump into each other, even like by accident, even without really acknowledging
Like
each other, just kind of being in the same space for a minute. I just very selfishly think that would be very funny. Because they don't know. I'm such a sucker for like this micro trope of two characters like seeing each other early enough in life that they don't know what they're going to be to each other later.
Oh, I love it.
And not even like they may not even be aware that they saw each other earlier.
I mean, I ship them so hard. I want them to be together.
Same.
It's just like even yeah. I mean, they don't know each other until Book of Boba Fett officially. So
even just like accidentally being in the same cantina, would selfishly to me be very funny. So
I'm here for this.
In terms of anything other than what we've discussed before, that's what I want.
Yes. I feel like we've gone through the gamut of all the things. I want Omega to be more adult. I want her to have grown up a little bit more. That's my only other wish. I think she was rightfully babyfied in the first season, but I like the idea of her being more of a teenager. It doesn't look like we're going to get a model age up because maybe that was too complicated or costly for her. So maybe not much.
She could be a little old. We don't know how long it's been because Hunter said it's been like, I don't remember what he said exactly, but all this time or something.
All this time.
It's been time.
It's been time.
We just don't know how much time.
I just like, even if it's not that like the model is larger, like the animation model,
they'd have to redo the whole model.
Yeah, like I want her to be like not as babyfied, I guess.
Yeah, like emotionally more mature.
More mature, yeah.
It's not physically,
And I also like to what I was speaking about with her clone sister. I want some in-depth femme symbolism and narrative to do with this character that could. There's a mythical story with Inanna going into the underworld to meet her sister Ereshkigal, who's the goddess of the dead. So we have kind of the goddess of the living and the goddess of the dead who lives in the underworld. Ereshkigal takes her time to strip Inanna of all of her clothes and everything and wears her down basically to nothing until Inanna can basically be reminded that in the face of death, there is nothing. And then she is reborn after that. So there's a lot of cool things that they could potentially do with that. And from a heroine's journey perspective, it is a very symbolic journey to face the darkest version of yourself, deep within yourself, often represented by mirrors, seeing yourself as the dark version, so like Dark Ray, etc. But it helps you grow as a person to understand that you have the potentiality to be the darkest version of yourself within yourself.
I love that. I feel like we have that potential because the two of them are essentially stuck together.
Yeah. And it's like symbolically in the underworld because they're underground. Yeah. It's all there. Somebody understands symbolism either innately or purposefully in this writing staff.
I feel like so many people know these things innately and almost do them by mistake. But it doesn't, not by mistake, but like without putting the name on it. Without that purpose, they just understand that this is how the structure is.
Yeah, and like young Campbell would say that we all plug into the social societal archetypes that are bred into us. And these archetypes are like a different version of language that we as humans are, we grow up with the idea that we all are born, we all grow, we all die, we all have parents of some sort. We all are presented with desires and, the fact that we all have to become adults, unfortunately. So like these archetypes exist and they are ever present across multiple cultures. Not to say that cultures don't have their own versions of things that are also fundamental to those individual cultures. But the reason that it speaks to us primarily as a North American audience is because it's been in our culture and in our society for so long.
I was going to say, like, it to me feels like language, like anybody,
it is.
like literal, like I used to teach or tutor, and the kids would be like, why does language work this way? And I'd be like, I actually could not tell you why. I just know that this is how the language works.
Humans have a propensity they're primed to understand language.
Yeah. And it's story language.
Yeah. And symbolism is just another form of communication, like colors and like music and like artistic elements that we are primed to as humans pick up on. Our brains, it is another version of language. It's, yeah.
We understand it even if we can't explain it.
Exactly. And so I often call this like the story is resonating with me if it's something about it that really speaks to me in a particular way, because it's kind of like how certain musical forms or certain types of music speak to me as a human. Same thing with symbols, same thing with these mythic motifs that happen, that the story itself resonates with me because that's what my body is like. Yeah, I love this story. Fundamentally, right? It's like my favorite bedtime story if they're speaking with the symbolic language that I love. So yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
I'm super excited for Bad Batch season 3 because it's hopefully will go where I want it to go and tell a healing end to the Clone Wars themselves.
Yes,
because and that's really what we're looking for.
I agree.
All right, Arzu,
MC.
We're wrapping it up. Where can people find you if they're looking for you and all of your amazing work online?
The best place to find me, for better or worse, I am still on Twitter, on X, at Arzu Amin. My bio's got all the links, but you can find me on the Geeky Waffle, writing reviews on the site, podcasting. I work at Collider, so you can find my work there. I'm on Instagram, if Instagram is your jam, at ArzuD2, which is the other good place to find me. And it is defunct now, or on hiatus, I should say, but I used to run a blog at arzud2.com. It's still up. I just haven't updated it in a long time. Where I went through every Star Wars canon novel in pseudo-chronological order. As the new releases started coming out, I just started doing them as I got them. But at the start of the pandemic, I started at Dooku Jedi Lost and kind of went from there. So if you are so inclined to get my thoughts on that, that's at arzud2.com.
Amazing. Thank you for coming on the show, and look forward to hearing your thoughts on Bad Batch season 3 as they come out, as well as my thoughts as I talk about them. I'm super excited to see this. So take care, everyone. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is orchestral music by Christy Carew for What the Force. You can support the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We'd like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: John, In Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Christian Luca, Carly Ann, Scott C., and Susan. Support the show by wearing the Force with our merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps others find the show. Connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook. Our website is whattheforce.ca, or the Discord link is in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.